Hey everybody, this is episode 11 of the You're Doing Great Mom podcast. I am Marianne Shiozawa. Let's get this party started. Today I'm speaking with a wonderful woman, Callie Burke. She lives in South Australia on a farm, living a sweet country life with her 5-year-old son and her husband. She also has a few of her own horses, among other farm animals too. Her story is very interesting to me. She's always known that she wanted to be a mother, ever since she was even about 5 years old. And that was what she would tell people when they asked her, what do you want to be when you grow up? Mom, she'd reply. So when an OB-GYN told her at the age of 15 that she would never be able to have her own children, it was devastating. I didn't know Callie before recording this episode, and I felt an instant connection with her during our conversation. She and I seemed to click right from the get-go, and it was a pleasure to hear her experience about becoming and being a mother. Listen to Callie's story about her determination and perseverance, even when the odds were seemingly against her. I hope you find it as compelling and inspiring as I did. Today, I've got Callie Burke with me. Thanks for being on my podcast today, Callie.
That's okay. Thanks for having me.
I'm really interested in your story. You were just telling me in the pre-chat what happened to you when you were much younger. And I just wanted to start just by asking how how motherhood came into your life. Like, did you think about it when you were young? Was it something that you always wanted, or was it something that just sort of didn't creep up on you until later on?
No, it was definitely something that I always wanted. I always wanted to be a mum. Some people want to be school teachers and lawyers and things like that, but my response to that question was, I always want to be a mum. That was just what I wanted to do. Growing up, I had a lot of problems with period pain and things like that every month. And I ended up going and seeing a specialist and was diagnosed with quite severe endometriosis. So from that, had operations such as laparoscopies and things like that, and was told at 15, point blank, by an obstetrician that he was an obstetrician gynecologist, told point blank that I would not be able to have kids. And at 15, that's not something that you take on very well.
At 15 years old.
So I was mortified. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, pretty much. So at 15, I was mortified. I couldn't get over it. I was determined to do whatever I could, change diet, have it burn off as frequently as I could. But then, that has other complications because then there's scar tissue and that creates more issues. So I basically just sort of left it and tried to lead a pretty healthy lifestyle. And then when I met my husband and we got married and we decided that, let's see if we can prove the doctors wrong and actually fall pregnant. We had met with my gynecologist, who was also going to be my obstetrician if we were successful, and we're all amped and pumped, ready to go for fertility treatment, IVF, for it to take years or whatever. But it actually turned out that when we went there to start all that, he asked me to do a blood test to just confirm I wasn't pregnant at the time, and it turned out that I actually was.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Not only did I prove them right, I know. Not only did I prove them wrong, I proved them wrong, and I didn't need any intervention. I mean, I call my son my miracle baby because that's exactly what he is. we haven't been successful in having additional children, but I just count my lucky stars that I've got my miracle baby Declan.
Wow.
He's 5 now. Yeah. So yeah, that's sort of how it all came about for me. I mean, it's something that I always wanted. It's something that that I just prayed and prayed would actually happen, and it has. And I suppose because it was so easy with Declan, even with the doctor saying it wouldn't happen, I kind of assumed that when we went for the second child that it would be the same, but it wasn't. We had years of fertility treatment and just constant agony about, that time, and you test and you just hope that you're pregnant, and there's just so much devastation every time it didn't happen, to the point where I called it and just said, no more. I can't keep going through this every month. And I'm happy with Declan, and we've got a healthy, happy boy. And I've actually so much so changed my life, my work life, so that I'm more involved with him. Considering he is my child, I now work remotely from home, with the flexibility of working for myself, so I can choose my hours. It allows me to be involved with him while he still wants me to be involved with him. I mean, he's 5, so in about 5 to 10 years' time, it probably won't be cool to have mum around. But at the moment, he wants me there, so I want to be there and not miss out on things. So I help out in class and go on the excursions and do the readings in the morning with the kids and things like that. So from not being able to have kids to having this miracle, and then being able to embrace it with having the flexibility in my job that allows me the time to spend with him, is just amazing.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's really an interesting story, because so really early on, your dreams and wishes, what's your earliest memory of knowing you really wanted to be a mother?
I suppose when my sister came along, there's 4 years between me and my sister, and I was always sort of a mothering type to her, whether she liked it or not. That's just how it was. And I just really, loved being the big sister and the mothering figure. And then I became the eldest of 10 grandchildren.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah. All girls except for one.
Oh my gosh.
And so, and so the babysitting and things like that. And, the kids have always been a huge thing in my life. I did do primary school teaching at uni, but I didn't complete that in the end. More so because I thought, well, how am I going to have time and energy for my own child when I get home at the end of the day, when I've put all this time and focus and energy into other people's children? So that was the reason I didn't finish that, because I was lucky enough to fall pregnant with Declan. But I suppose playing dolls and having younger siblings, a younger sibling, and also younger cousins that were pretty much like siblings, because we were quite close. So that's sort of when I first knew that that's definitely what I wanted to do.
Wow, that is young. But I think and I can totally, that resonates with me as well. I think that although I wasn't a big doll player, I was always I think it's probably, I don't really know, but I'm guessing that many, many women can say that resonates as well with them, in terms of early on always feeling like the mother type of caregiver and
nurturer.
Yeah, and just to really enjoy taking care of people. And I mean, that is who we are as women. It's like a core of the feminine essence. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that really is resonates. But to be at 15 years old and to have an expert say, "Sorry, but you
I
can't,"
know.
just that blows me away. Because how can anybody be that arrogant?
Certain. Yeah, I know. I know. And I mean, and that sort of, that whole event sort of turned my life upside down and started a bit of a bout of depression.
Mm.
Over my dreams not being able to come true, and and then I sort of lived my life in the fact that that's not going to happen. I'm just going to constantly be you know unhappy with the outcome of my life because I'm not going to be able to have children, and that's what I wanted. um and I lived with that was going to be how my life was, so much so that even when I did fall pregnant with Declan, because we'd amped ourselves up for the fact that it was going to be a few years before we'd be able to fall pregnant, if we could fall pregnant, I actually went into a complete and utter state of shock and denial that I was pregnant. It took me a while to comprehend that I had fallen pregnant and actually enjoy it and not worry about what would happen in the 9 months that I was carrying him. Like, is there going to be other complications? I was told I couldn't have kids. I've fallen pregnant, but I still haven't had him yet. So it always just left doubts in my mind. And yeah, I really think practitioners should think before they speak a bit more these days. And hopefully they do.
Yeah. And, I mean, like on the flip side of that, you can actually, I mean, I would never, I don't think I would, I know I would never be that, one cannot say that absolute to anybody, as expert as anybody is. I just don't think that's the best, the way to communicate to somebody who's seeking, your expertise. But in any case, one can look at it like, well, you could have chosen to just accept that and then just gone with your life and not really change anything or something like that. But you said that you tried to live as healthy as possible because there was something in you that knew, well, there is still a possibility. So I'm going to do whatever I can to make that happen. Or, what I mean, like just that little chance, even though in your mind, like your logical mind, you're thinking, oh, there's probably like a 0.05% chance or something, you still took that chance. Yeah. So that's interesting because you could have just gone like really downhill.
Yeah. I mean, and there was bouts of that. But I did get other opinions, and the other opinions weren't as definite, but they were along the lines of, you need to do it. The sooner you try and get pregnant, the better it will be, and the more likelihood you are of falling pregnant. So the fact that happened when I was 15 and I didn't fall pregnant with Declan until I was 29 is just mind-boggling.
So was there anything specific? Did you do research? I mean, maybe at the time, because how old are you now? You're 34?
Now I'm 34.
Okay,
yeah.
Right. And so at the time there wasn't, when you were 15, there wasn't really the internet. Oh, I mean, there was, but like, it wasn't as, in terms of the level of information at that time wasn't as, abundant. But did you do any research about any specific thing to, like what you could do?
Well, so I was lucky enough that my mum is a registered nurse, and we grew up in a small country town, and she basically worked with the local doctors, and the local doctors had connection to the specialists and things like that. So I got sort of a lot of information through them about what what it was, because even what endometriosis was, nobody talked about it. Nobody knew what it was. It was this thing that girls got, and they had really bad pain and like really heavy periods, and they were just unable to function for a few days every month. But it wasn't something that was common. Like, I didn't know anybody that had it. I think, in reflecting on the symptoms and things like that with my mum and my aunties, I think that they may have had it, and they agree that they may have had it, but it went undiagnosed because it wasn't a common thing. But now, like, it was only the other day, there was a article about Marilyn Monroe apparently had endometriosis, and I posted it on my Facebook page saying, oh my God, I've finally got something in common with Marilyn Monroe. It might not be her awesome figure and things like that, but it's endometriosis. And then on that, people that I went to school with responded saying that they had it as well.
Wow.
And at school. Yeah, so I suppose it's like anything, isn't it? Unless it's a huge disease or condition that affects so many people, it's not really spoken about or discussed. But yeah, so
yeah. No, go. Sorry. I was just thinking that actually, I do think it's quite common, and yet I think that a lot of women's conditions that are directly, other than breast cancer, but other things like fibroids and endometriosis, things that are related directly to the reproductive system of women, is it's not talked about at all. Really, very, very little. Although it is actually quite common, as you have discovered.
And yeah, same with polycystic ovaries. At one stage when we were trying to have the second child, they thought that was something else that I might have. It turns out that I don't. But again, that's something that's not discussed. And yet when I was going through the testing and things like that, speaking to friends, there's so many people that have that problem.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe, I suppose, if anyone can take anything away from this podcast, it's to, one, professionals may be there to help you, but definitive answers aren't necessarily the be all and end all. You can prove them wrong. And that, if you've got health issues that you think may prevent you or hinder you in becoming a mum and entering motherhood, talk about it. You may not know what treatments are out there. And there are so many holistic things these days that make such a huge difference.
Yeah, that's excellent. Because I was going to say, if a teenager is going to be told this through the diagnosis and the discovery that you have this condition, it is not a end-all be-all death sentence sort of thing. Because at the age of, at any point in your life, especially when you're young and you're 15, the body is designed to heal itself. And I mean, it's one of the things that I'm very passionate about in my practice, is about women's health, preconception health, and, having a healthy pregnancy. And at age 15, I mean, I don't know, you don't have to share this information, but, when girls have their period for the first time, or when they go through the beginnings of puberty at age, 10, 11, 12, there's so much change that's involved in their bodies, in their moods, in their just everything. And it's different, so much so because obviously the first time they have their period, it's like, I think that there's a big gap in terms of what we as mothers can educate our daughters in what's actually happening in their bodies, and then to experience, because was it from the get-go when you first started having periods that you started having heavy periods and pain?
Yeah, yeah. And
Really?
it was more just, yeah, it was more, it got progressively worse. It was, it, in reflection, it was worse than my peers, but it did get progressively worse sort of from 13 onwards. But it, mum always put it down to, oh, you've got such a low pain threshold. Don't you're just being a hypochondriac. So it sort of just got pushed to the side until it actually got to the point where I would pass out from the pain.
Really? Oh
And
my
I
God.
couldn't get out. Yeah, yeah, and I couldn't get out of bed. Like it was, I would crawl to the toilet and I would just spend hours at the toilet. Like it was horrible.
Oh my God.
And then yeah, and then she was like, okay, we really need to do something about this.
Yeah.
But, being a registered nurse, she is harder on her own kids because
Yep.
she's used to seeing it all at work. So, but we got there in the end. So, yeah.
Yeah.
It all worked out.
Yeah, that's good. Clearly. And so because I just it's if I that's like one of the things that is very it's very important. I think that like if teenagers, if girls had the education or just to know like the knowledge of what how to take care of their bodies in terms of the having healthy periods and what kind of problems can come up and how things are related to diet and your emotional stress levels, things like that. I just think that it would just really open up. Girls would just have so much more confidence and freedom around what they want, so take you for example,
empowerment.
Yeah, exactly. So take you for example, if you came to me and said that somebody because I actually have this quite often where mothers say that their teenage daughter has painful periods and they don't know why or blah blah blah. I would just sit there and say, okay, right, this is what is possible. This is what can be done, and your daughter's body can heal. So, but for you to kind of live this sort of reality or this false reality of, well, you've got this going on in your uterus, therefore you're not going to have any children. It's just, oh my gosh, so disempowering.
It is. And, when they'd gone, because I had a few laparoscopies, and when they'd gone in, they're like, oh, well, it's actually spread onto your bowels and your bladder. And then it was this particular doctor was like, so there's a talk coming up at the local hospital, and some people who have it on these organs then have to get partial organs removed and stuff. So it wasn't even just the whole, you won't be able to have kids. You maybe have to, have a colostomy bag and things like that. It was just really full on.
Wow. That's scary.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So education and girls getting the right information and giving them the power back to own their body and what they want to do with it is huge. And, it's quite debilitating, different conditions that relate to our hormone levels and to our periods and cycles and just general fertility that impact us well before we're ready to have kids. And the information just, these days it probably is a lot more readily available with the internet, but it's knowing sort of what to look for and what to believe. Like there's so much stuff out there. I had someone the other day comment, oh no, there's a cure for endometriosis. Well, no, there actually isn't. Mm-hmm. You can have a hysterectomy, and if you've still got it on other organs, it'll still take place. There is no cure. My mother-in-law is a prime example. She had endometriosis. She had the hysterectomy. She was told it would fix it. And after her hysterectomy, a couple of years later, it came out that it didn't actually fix it. So she was still having the pain and everything of all the endometriosis, but she thought it was all in her head because she was told, no, it's cured, but it doesn't. So again, you know your body better than anyone else.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you went in to get it checked out because you were prepping, thinking that after you got married, thinking that you would have to go through, years of just like torture and, well, not torture, but like just a hardship of getting pregnant.
Yeah.
Like, did they go in there and check it out again, or?
They did ultrasounds and things like that. It was probably 2 years before that I had my last burn off of endometriosis. So it was a matter of, I could have had another laparoscopy if I wanted to, but it was weighing up whether I wanted the extra scar tissue as well, because, you can either burn it off. It wasn't directly on my ovaries or fallopian tubes, so it wasn't as much of an issue. But then if they go in and they burn things off and they cause obstructions and things like that with scar tissue, then that can also be an issue. So it was weighing that up. So we agreed that we would try fertility drugs first for a while, and then if we needed to, we'd go back in and do a fresh clean out. But yeah, no, he didn't seem to think that it was as bad as the last time, which I don't know, it mustn't have been because it happened.
So from the age of 15, 16, so your periods are quite regular and they've always been heavy and painful.
No, they've always been heavy and painful, and they were always regular because I was put on the pill to sort of to stabilize them and to make them sort of end at a certain time. Otherwise, they tended to go on. There was also a period where the doctors thought being on the pill and not having a break was a good thing to do, because it didn't give the endometriosis time because it's when you have your cycle that it actually gets worse and spreads. So that was also another thing. But no, it was, it wasn't, I don't know.
I'm just
it's hard reflecting on it all.
Yeah, I'm reflecting. Yeah. Well, I'm curious so okay, so I have these other just random questions that may or may not be related to it in my point of view so as someone who looks at the spine for the body's level of health. So do you remember how you were born? Like, was it?
I had a really traumatic birth. I don't remember it, but I've been told it.
Right.
So I was a month overdue. Believe it or not, they don't let that happen anymore. But I was a month overdue. My mum had trouble delivering me at the local country hospital. So they ended up rushing her just over an hour away to the city hospital. And then I was able to be born naturally with the assistance of forceps.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. A month overdue. Yeah, that would be very difficult to allow that to happen now. And then, so as a baby, do you know if you crawled properly, or like your developmental milestones? Do you know if they were?
I never crawled.
Mm-hmm.
I never crawled. I walked. So I never crawled. I walked. I think it was about 8 months old. And yeah, milestones happened quite quickly. I was toilet trained by just over one, I think. Absolute chatterbox. Yeah, everything sort of happened a lot earlier than it did for my son. That's for sure.
Interesting. That's interesting. Because I have this theory that, and it's just basically a matter of getting the data and the statistics. But like, I have this theory because I do pediatric chiropractic, and one of the things that is very important is asking the mother, how is the child's birth. So my theory is that for girls, if there were any milestones that were not met, such as crawling, which is actually a very, very important part of spinal development.
It is.
Yeah.
Yep.
And now, of course, now that you know, your son, now that you've seen his developmental milestones, you know, like as mothers, we kind of know like when something's different or just not the norm in terms of developments and physical developments and stuff like that. So we're always we're always looking out for, is my child like growing up normally and blah blah blah, you know.
Yeah.
So it's for a good reason. And looking at it from the development of a baby's spine, a child's spine, it's actually really, really important. And I just have this theory that speaking about girls, because it obviously would affect boys differently, but girls, if their milestones were not met, there's going to be some kind of impact on the nervous system, and then that girl won't really notice the impact of it or the effects of it until puberty. And
yeah.
In fact, I just wrote a blog about it, where that it's not like if you didn't crawl, then you're going to have crappy, shitty periods and, you know, you're doomed. It's not that. It's just the likelihood that there could be other issues that when your body develops really fast and grows really fast during puberty and your hormones kick in, the way the central nervous system works is there's a cascade of hormones that have to work properly for the reproductive organs to develop in a healthy way. And so because girls we're so in tune to our cycles or not, there could be some physical manifestation such as painful periods, endometriosis, you know, I mean, the list goes on and on. So, you know, I obviously it's just a theory, but I do think that that's super important. And I just threw the question out to you, and it's interesting that you didn't crawl. So, I mean, that just could be a total coincidence. But, you know, but yeah, like it's so, you know, to have that kind of the situation where you're in now, where I think that, you know, you're still young, and I still think that you will have that second baby. You know,
I hope so.
Yeah. I mean, and I can only imagine your emotional state, because you said that you were like, okay, forget it, you know, like let's just kind of stop, and you're able to focus now on. I think that's really actually, you seem like that type of person who takes times of adversity and just like pushes through and goes like on the positive path.
I do some of the time, but not all of the time. I try to refocus. So when I decided to say enough is enough with the second child, I knew it wouldn't be for the good, but it was for the now. And it was because we packed up from suburbia and moved to a little renovator's delight hobby farm. Nice. So we are we're focused on that at the moment, and Declan's starting school, so there's a lot of other things for me to focus on. So yeah, once all that settles down, I'm sure I'll get back on that bandwagon again.
Yeah. Well, just a little side note, if you've never been for chiropractic care, there is a lot of great success stories where, if you because of the fact that you didn't crawl and you just had, maybe there could be something in the nervous system or the spine that indicates some kind of spinal issue where, I don't know, because a lot of chiropractic, a lot of women do, when their spine actually gets more healthier through specific chiropractic care, women just, they fall pregnant. So anyway, that's just a side thing. We won't get into that. But just for the sake of like this conversation, I just what was so you mentioned that you started your home, online business, or where you're able to work from home.
Yeah. So I sort of got headhunted through LinkedIn while I was working my 9-to-5 job in an office, and they came about and told me that you could do virtual stuff, so office work in a virtual capacity. So I took on a contract with them, and from there I sort of reached out and got some clients. So now I work at home in Australia on our little hobby farm with clients in Venice and America and in London, and I help them basically. The majority of them are coaches or entrepreneurs, and so I just help them with their back end stuff. So it could be their marketing, it could be systems and processes, it could just be assisting them as an executive assistant, so managing their diaries, their bookkeeping, different things like that. So I'm able to use the skills that I had in an office, but do it from home, and do it, I suppose, because the hours are different as well. It works so that when Declan's in bed, I can work. So that's also been another change that's been implemented that I'm focusing on as well. But it's the freedom that it's given me to be able to have that time with my son that I otherwise wouldn't have been able to do, because life is expensive and I want the best for Declan, because he is my little blessing. So I've still got to earn an income as much as I don't want to miss anything, and I want to be there, and he's my number one priority above everything else. I still need to work.
Yeah. I mean, it's you're able to, that's really great that how you're able to just have that freedom just to prioritize and then keep your your connection and your time with Declan at maximum. That's really awesome.
Yeah, and I'm doing a lot more fun things now. So, I mean, one of the clients, like, I'm in Australia and I've never been to Tuscany, but one of my clients is doing a retreat in Tuscany. So I'm organizing this awesome lifestyle retreat from my home office in a country that I haven't been to, but learning all these fascinating things. So it's much more interesting work, and it has the benefits of me calling the shots, basically.
Oh, that's so cool. And you're just somewhere in the middle of, like, you're in this farm. I mean, so it's like the countryside.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. That sounds great.
Yeah, so we've got 30 acres here, and we back onto a forest, and so it's beautiful.
Yeah, it sounds beautiful. I would love, that's like it sounds like a holiday to take.
Yeah, definitely.
Peace and quiet from the busy city life of London. Although I was raised near New York City, so I'm a city. I love the countryside, and actually I'm a city girl, but like with a closet country girl sort of thing. I don't know how how you would name it, but anyway. So, yeah, anyway, so to backtrack, sorry, I'm going all over the place here.
No, I am too, don't worry.
I tend to do this. What I was curious about is, and I wanted to ask this, but it fell out of my head, is how was your pregnancy with Declan? Like, were there, because you had that scar tissue or, just from all those treatments that you had for your endometriosis, how was it in general?
It wasn't fun. I had morning sickness from week 10 all the way through.
Oh, wow.
Even when I was in labor, I had a bucket because I was still being sick literally until the minute he was out, it stopped. It was crazy.
Oh my gosh. That's rare.
I tore stomach muscle getting out of bed.
Really?
Like halfway through, so I had to wear a brace, which was absolutely lovely. And it was really tired. The pregnancy, it was not fun. I loved the feeling of having him in my belly growing, and he was extremely active. So that was quite cool. But the labor, I ended up getting induced, and
was he like was he overdue?
Yeah. Not by much, but I had started retaining a lot of fluid and had been told that I had to finish work earlier than I had planned and sort of be on bed rest type stuff. So it was more a matter of my health was deteriorating as well. So, so with the induction wasn't fun. I wouldn't recommend it unless you absolutely have to do it. It turned out that my waters had to be manually broken, it wasn't ready or ripe or however they say it in their language. So it was quite painful. And then because of the induction, then the pains came on thick and fast. And it wasn't a hugely long labor, but it was quite painful. And then Declan sort of got stuck in my pelvis. So they had to use a suction cap to sort of help maneuver him out. So that wasn't fun.
So how did they induced you from Pitocin or from just breaking your waters?
No, Pitocin, and then I think it was 12 hours later or something like that. Then they broke my waters. Yeah.
And then did you have an epidural?
Yes, I did, because I was not coping at all.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you have Pitocin, I hear that's brutal.
Well, I don't know any different, but I'm telling you, from me, it is brutal. But yeah, and I mean, Declan was healthy. He was tiny. He was 2.5 kilos. So I'm not sure what that is.
2.5 kilos.
Yeah. I'm not sure what that is in ounces or whatever. But he was quite small. Preemie clothes were big on him.
Oh, really?
But he was overdue. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, interesting.
And he was jaundiced, and we had to stay in hospital for a week because he was so jaundiced. Yeah, so
Sorry. Do you know?
No, it's okay.
Do you know if your placenta was healthy or smaller, or do you not?
No, I did see it, and he said it was fine. Yeah, no, there was no comment about it being small or any problems with it. Yeah, he was quite happy to show me it and tell me it was all good.
That's interesting. Yeah, he was overdue, and yet he was a little on the smaller side. Because I mean, 2.5. That's about 5, just under 6 pounds, I think, something like that. 6, yeah. And so yeah, that's small, but that's not preemie size. But he was
No, no, no.
yeah, yeah. And so he and Declan was okay after he went through the jaundice. He sort of grew in a healthy way, and
He wasn't. So I tried breastfeeding, and I had a lot of milk, but he wasn't able to get it, and then I ended up with mastitis. So he then had to go on formula because he was just decreasing in weight and not increasing in weight, and they weren't happy with his progress. So yeah, he did take a while to sort of put on weight and grow a bit, but yeah, then he just grew leaps and bounds and he was fine. He was colicky, but yeah, that was probably the only thing.
and was it when it must have been really when he was born. You know, you say that he was your miracle baby. You must have just been like over the moon and like, oh my gosh, I'm actually a mother.
I was actually in shock, to be honest.
Oh,
Like, it
really?
was like, yeah, okay, I've carried. Yeah, I was in shock. So I carried him for the 9 months. I did the painful labor and all the rest of it, but yet that night I had to sort of keep looking, like, you're mine. Like, is this real? Like, it was surreal to me. Absolutely surreal.
Yeah.
Even though I'd had the lead up to it and I knew it was coming, it was still surreal when it actually happened.
Yeah, that's I can imagine that. So when did it? I mean, it's this. You remember, like it was only 5 years ago for you, and
yeah,
that beginning few weeks where you had the milk and it was difficult for him to latch on, and you had mastitis. Was it like? So what was that like for you? Were you because go ahead, sorry.
No, the first 6 weeks, I say it to all my friends. The first 6 weeks are the hardest. The first 6 weeks were horrible. He went through phases where, so for the first 6 weeks, I was breastfeeding. But so he went through phases of feeding hourly, and you get told by so many different people on how to do different things, and you feed on demand, don't feed on demand, to have a routine, let them cry to sleep, don't let them cry to sleep, and it's all just a massive learning curve. It was really hard. I don't know how often I got out of my pajamas in that first 6 weeks.
Yeah.
But yeah, looking back, it would have been hilarious to watch, but it was quite stressful at the time.
Yeah.
It was quite stressful, but after it was literally like a switch had been flicked, because like 6 weeks on, you got into this rhythm and the routine, and he was feeding better, and life just sort of happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the adjustment period, I think, that was the biggest thing, and the sleep. Like I used to be a massive sleeper. And Declan never has been. So for the last 5 years, he goes through phases where he's not a great sleeper still. And now I've just adapted to that. So I think that 6 week thing was adapting as well.
Yeah. And it must have been though, like that. Yeah. The first 6 weeks is just always like, Oh my God. It's so like the first, we know it as the fourth trimester. It is the hardest trimester, I think, in a different way, but I think it's just really way underrated, and underexposed. But yet you are living this life of like being, just having this. I mean, once the shock wore off, you were probably like, oh my God, this is my son. This is my miracle baby. Like, yeah.
I owned it.
Yeah.
I embraced it. I took a year off and just spent that purely with him, and then went back to work part-time all the way through until about 4 months ago, when I started working virtually from home. So I've made sure that I have been able to be in his life and with him as much as possible. Some people say that's a good thing to do, others don't. I really don't care. For me, it is a good thing to do. And he is very much a mummy's boy. I don't think he had an option in that, but he's very much a mummy's boy. And he's enjoying me being there. And I know I can, from friends and their kids, how quickly that can change. So while he still wants me there, I'm there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. So is there, you've said like really great pieces of wisdom about for young women who, or, teenagers, those two things. But is there anything other than that, like what you learned in your experience and the adversity that you experienced, and then, what you're thinking of like for yourself in the future? Is there anything that you wanted to add, before we wrap this up? And just because I think that's the whole purpose of this podcast, is just to have women listen to it, and to, if they haven't gone through it, to know that that's actually possible. And then if they have gone through it, to feel that their experience is validated and that other women share this as well. So
yeah. I suppose you know your body better than anyone else. Professionals have learnt at university and in hospitals and things like that, but they haven't lived in your body. You know your body better than anyone else. And just because you're told something can't happen, if you really put your mind to it and try and explore every option, the possibility is there. It still may not happen, but at least you've tried. That was my thing. At least I tried. I had to try. Try diet, try holistic approaches, try chiropractic, try herbs and naturopaths and things like that. Just because it's a holistic approach doesn't mean it's not the right approach. I mean, your obstetrician that may tell you, it's not worth it, don't worry about it, don't do that. It's your body, it's your choice. So do what feels right for you. And just education. Education's a huge thing. If you're diagnosed with something, always research it. Your doctor will tell you so much, but there may be other information out there. They don't have the time to keep up to date with what's working for other people. They just they're a textbook doctor unless they're really innovative and are, researching quite frequently on a topic. You may probably be able to find out some newer treatments or some other natural alternatives to follow. Yeah,
that's awesome. That's really good, because it's true. Your body is nobody knows your body as well as you do. So, well, this was really, really great, Callie. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your story. It's not it's quite intimate and it's like really private stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, if anyone can get anything out of it, it's great. I mean, I wish I had someone around who had gone through a similar situation when I was 15 and growing up and trying to work my way through it myself. So for all those women out there with endometriosis who have been given the worst odds, it is possible, and it doesn't have to involve IVF and other expensive treatments. There are natural ways, and don't give up. If it's really something that you want, don't give up.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, Callie.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. It was a really, really big pleasure. To connect with Callie, to ask her questions about anything she mentioned, feel free to email her at callie.burke@eliteexecutivesupport.com. You can also connect with her on Facebook. Callie Burke is spelled Callie. Burke is Burke. Links and information will be in the show notes. I've got an exciting feature on my website. It's a forum, which is great because it's outside of Facebook. So those of you who aren't on Facebook and don't see my updates, or for those of you who would like another refreshing platform other than Facebook, I encourage you to connect here on my website, yourdoinggreatmom.com/forum. Please go there, introduce yourself, and let's start some great and interesting conversations. If you like this episode or any previous ones, please subscribe to this podcast, and I would be so grateful if you also posted a review. Thanks again, and I'll see you next week.